All right, so making a bed frame here for a California King. Right now I'm just ripping down 2x4s to make 1.5 inch building material. So I'm able to make this entire frame out of, I think it was 6 or 7 2x4s. It's what I had, and I want to face it with pine, so that's why I chose to do it this way. All right, getting ready to cut all these at 23 7/8. To make it quick, I just put a stop. So that way when I take my board and I run it in here, it hits on this to stop and cut these exactly 23 7/8. You can make a stop however you want. You could just screw blocks straight down to your bench or whatever, but I'm just gonna chop these up and hopefully make this process a little bit faster. All right, let me do a few cuts here and show you what this thing is looking like using the stop. Okay, so this countersink bit is a drill bit, and at the base of it, it's got a little countersink that makes way for the head of a screw. That way, when the head of your screw is going into your lumber, it's not splitting any of this smaller material. So I'm drilling here first with the countersink, and then putting a 3-inch through the side. So right here, I'm just using this countersink drill bit and clamping it down so the board stays where I want it, and then just driving a screw after. It's keeping these things nice and in line as I'm building. But yeah, the countersink bit is super important when you're working with this thin of material, just so you're not splitting anything out, messing up any of your cut boards. All right, that was pretty easy. Got the stack of them together. Now it's time to take our little 12-foot pieces and create the full boxes here. Okay, here are the frames all finished. Now next up, I'm gonna do just some little pine leftover trim, and I'm gonna kind of do a little truss style just to get them in square, or at least really close to square. Then I'll put the drawer slides in them, and then I will get them set in place. Okay, so a couple of these were a little bit out of square. And so when I'm putting on these braces, like I said, this leftover stuff from ripping down the 2x4s, if it's out of square, like as I'm putting on these braces to cross, I just put this little pipe clamp on and just, tighten it down if I've got one side that's a little bit out. Okay, so now here I'm ripping the 3/4 inch pine, and this is for the face frame that I'll be building for all of these, just to give it a nice finished look. Again, anytime you have a chance to set up a stop and make some cuts without having to do a bunch of measurements, it really speeds the process along. Okay, so this is what the face frame is going to look like, and it'll just come up and rest, and I'm going to build them all the same. This one's got the 2 1/4 at the very end to hang over to accept some trim on the back side. And then it's got the 2 1/4 on this side to overhang to split that spacer clean in half for the center. And then the same thing on the far side. So they're all gonna be built exactly the same, which makes my life easy. Even on this far side up against the wall, I'm just gonna go ahead and do this 2 1/4 because I had the boards cut for it, and it's not gonna be a big issue. So, so with this pocket hole, I'll be pre-drilling out this one to drill into that board on each end. So I'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times 6 holes to drill out. So I'll get that going now. This Kreg pocket hole jig is super awesome. It's got the vacuum to keep all the dust down, and it just makes putting these face frames together so easy. Okay, you can see these pocket holes here. Screws go right in and fasten to this board. And then when you flip it up and you put it on the actual frame, you don't see these drill outs. And if you are doing something where you can see these, they have little wood fillers that'll go in there and they cover them real easy. So it's a pretty cool system. So just like I kind of built these frames, I'm gonna clamp this thing down to where it's in place, screw that in, and I'm gonna build all 12 of these frames. So I've got this set into place now, and you see the slots on the left, doing the same thing on the right. And for both of these, I just cut a little spacer, actually 2 spacers to put on each side. That way I know both sides are identical, and putting slats across the center for support will be super easy, and everything will be lined up. Also, you see here, I'm just clamping everything together and screwing these 6 individual boxes into one piece. All right, progress so far. All these slats, a lot of slats. A lot of this leftover, old shelving, which is perfect length for this. But instead of making this ladder thing like I thought, I was gonna just do like a long board right here and a long board right here, and this would all be one piece that you could just set in there. I thought even easier for moving, these things could just come out individually. So I'm just gonna screw the end right here, right there, right there, right there, and then all these will just come up individually. So they come up individually, and they've got these little, ledgers on them to keep them from sliding out. They just set in like that, and the ledgers keep them from sliding, too far one way or the other, and the mattress will keep them in place from there. Okay, now I'm starting on these drawers here. So just ripping this material down to 1 inch shy of my opening. That way I don't have any issues getting the drawers in. And getting all this cut to height, and then I'll cut it down to size from here. And now I'm cutting these boards to length, and the way I set it up, all these boards are going to be the exact same measurement, which makes it easy for assembling and getting everything together. So here I'm putting a groove on the bottom side of the drawer. That way the drawer bottom will be able to slide in and secure in that fashion rather than nailing it to the bottom. This makes for a good strong drawer, and when I glue everything together, it's a nice solid piece. So here, putting together the drawers, not only am I going to be nailing these together, but also putting some glue on each joint will definitely strengthen up the whole entire thing. So I'm putting these grooves into place, getting everything lined up, and then just nailing down from here, getting these things pieced together. Also really focusing here on getting these edges perfectly lined up. That way I can rely on my measurements of my cuts to keep everything in square and keep these drawers sitting nice and flat and not rocking side to side. Also using this clamp here to press my glue joint together. That way everything is nice and strong. So here I'm putting the drawer slides on and just making sure the front of the slide is flush with the front of the drawer. Because I'm going to be making these things inset, this is a crucial part. That way the drawer slides in and just goes right past my trim. That way when I face my drawer with the trim, everything will be nice and flush. So we're gonna see if it fits. So the rule for this style of drawer slides is you making the drawer 1 inch narrower than this opening, the opening that you have these fixed to. That way you get a 1/2 inch on either side for these slides to work. And this opening is 12 inches. And so recommended giving at least 1 inch of clearance for the drawer. That way when you try to get it in there in an angle, it won't hit the top. So I gave just 1 inch. I gave just 1 inch here, so we'll see how this thing slides in. Yeah, it just barely clears. As you can see this opening right here, I gave 1 inch, and to get that roller up and over, I mean, I guess it clears by about a 1/2 inch or so, but so it fits in there. Slides in nicely. So like I said before, this is inset at 3/4 of an inch. That way when I put my trim piece on the face of this, it'll inset in here. So I'll just cut a piece exactly, the opening. I'll probably leave 1/8 of an inch shy for like a 1/16 or maybe a little bit bigger on each side, maybe a couple millimeters. And then I'll put this in there and fasten it to it. And then I'll hook up the poles and everything. But yeah, it turned out pretty good. And once we get the faces on there, you'll see what it really looks like. Okay, so I cut up some of this birch plywood for the face of these drawers. I was gonna use 1x slats and like glue them together, but yeah, I thought this would make the finish a little bit more like I wanted it. So what I had was 1/2 inch, so 3/4 is what I allotted for as far as these things being inset, but I feel like that gives it a pretty cool look as well. So I'm gonna get these things probably glued on the back, and then I'll get some shims or some spacers, probably use like a deck of cards or something to get them right where I want them. I'll pin them in place with the nail gun, and then I'll probably screw them from the back to get them completely fastened. But yeah, that's what they're looking like. So just pushing them in, I'll glue them, get them spaced the way that I wanted them, and yeah, then we'll get the poles on and this thing will be done for now. Until I maybe move on to the headboard later. But yep, just an update. Let's go on. Now video this right here. Okay, so what I'm doing is I've glued the backside of this.
Okay.
And what I'm gonna do is use these playing cards to get an equal space up top and bottom. That way I can nail it from the face here and then screw it from the back once I know it's in the exact spot. I've also seen people use double-sided tape to stick these drawer faces to the drawers, which I think is a cool idea. I didn't have any, so I ended up face nailing, and I'll just cover it with some wood filler and sand it off. But yeah, it looks pretty good. Putting the poles on there. Here's the finished product. Super happy with how it turned out. And thanks so much for watching. Catch you in the next one.